Well, I was in Ecuador, so I was on the Napo River. The Amazon's a vast tropical forest that houses the highest biodiversity on Earth. It is an extremely important part of the global carbon cycle because of how much carbon dioxide is absorbed through primary production. But it is also a very fragile system. It's much more fragile than most ecosystems. It's much more fragile than a Ozark woodland. The soils are extremely thin. There's very little organic matter. So when you look at the forest, you just like see all this productivity, see all these plants. It's just dense. The species diversity is a hectare of land can have 120 different tree species. If you compare that to going out to an Ozark forest where there's a couple oak species and there's a couple hickory species, you just have this vast network of plants and insects and fungi and this whole system, and yet it is very, very fragile because the organic layer is only about 5 to 12 inches deep. And I've been down there in the dry season. Dry season means that it rains a couple hours a day, maybe a couple times a day. The wet season, it pretty much just rains all of the time. These fires are occurring during the dry season.
Small and large blazes are ravaging the region, mainly in Brazil, impacting one of the planet's major sources of breathable oxygen. Brazilian loggers and ranchers are accused of contributing to the fires by clearing some of the land for personal use. Concerned locals have taken to the streets to blast the country's president, saying he's relaxed environmental laws, all to promote economic expansion in the rainforest.
It is a marvel of biodiversity and a true oxygen factory. That is why taking care of the Amazon is, of course, the responsibility not only of the Amazon countries, but of the whole world. We will together, God willing, find a solution here, and we will give the world satisfaction.
Why are they talking about the Brazilian fires at the G7? Because the impact of the loss of that primary productivity and that carbon uptake, that carbon sequestration. When you cut down the rainforest or you burn the rainforest, and when you're burning it, you're volatilizing all of that. I think it's fair to say that when they're saying that it's the lungs of the earth, that's an apt analogy. And again, it's just the loss of the carbon sequestration, the potential loss of species. The reason we care is because that's where the primary productivity is. You might be losing plant species or animal species that hold the cure to lots of cancers. The compounds that we use for lots of cancers come from plants. There's lots of undiscovered plants. For every hectare or acre of tropical forest that you lose, it's probably equivalent to 100 in the Ozarks.